Hello, my name is Anuska and welcome to my channel. So on this week's video, this has been inspired by my own struggles over the last few weeks with hay fever. Anyone that suffers with hay fever, this is the video you want to watch, particularly if you have high demands on your voice, which presumably you do, otherwise you wouldn't be watching my videos. So I'm going to share a little bit more about what hay fever is and how we can actually kind of help ourselves with hay fever as a voice user, because it has profound impacts on our voice. So there's about 13 million people in the UK that struggle with hay fever. I'm in London and I always feel it's worse in cities, even though we're not in the countryside, although I do have lots of parks around me. But I think with all the pollution, it's just so much worse, I feel, being in a city. The technical term for hay fever is allergic rhinitis, which is essentially inflammation of the nose. And it's where an allergy to something like pollen or dust or mold irritates your nose and gives you these cold-like symptoms, which are, certainly in my case, itchy eyes, runny nose, and sneezing all the time. It's really annoying, particularly when it's warm, because it's been quite warm here. So you kind of have to have the windows open to let some air in. So allergies, including hay fever, result when our immune system attacks a typically harmless substance it perceives to be a threat that you come across in the environment. And so in the case of hay fever, this could be grass, tree, and weed pollens, as well as outdoor molds. So the challenge as a voice user, and this has certainly been my challenge over my lifetime, because I think I've always had hay fever ever since I can remember. Definitely when I lived in Melbourne, I used to say it was really bad in Melbourne, but now I'm back in London, I'm like, no, it's still bad. So the challenge as a voice user is the typical medication that you can get over the counter, the antihistamine type tablets, also have a drying effect on the voice. And this is the challenge, because yes, they might clear up the symptoms, but then if you are speaking for hours every day or singing, it's going to be a struggle because it's drying your voice out. So if you're taking these tablets every day, it can become a real problem. So I personally don't take any over-the-counter antihistamine. Now, this isn't a medical video. You do what you need to do, of course. Do some research yourself, particularly if you notice it does have an impact on your voice. But I'm just sharing what I do, because I personally don't want to take over-the-counter antihistamines. So it has this drying effect on our voice. It can dehydrate our voice. Our voice can become very dry. And if you do feel like you need to take the over-the-counter antihistamines, my main recommendation would just be to drink a lot more water than you normally would do, just to try and rebalance the dehydrating, drying effect that it's going to have on your voice. So what can you do if this is something that you struggle with as well? So I'm going to share some of the things that I do, and also just some other ideas that I know are out there that you can try, because it's going to be different for different people. So you just have to do what works for you. Without stating the obvious, the first one probably is just to avoid being outside. And which is kind of, particularly when it's been really beautiful weather, like it has been here over the last few days, it's quite challenging to stay indoors when the sun's shining, particularly in the UK, because we have to make hay while the sun shines. And so if you can avoid being outdoors, that's going to be the best option, particularly if you have some big speaking demands, singing demands coming up, say the following day. It's just going to make things a little bit easier for you. If you do have to go outside, just try and avoid when the pollen count is at its highest. And generally speaking, the pollen count is at its highest when it's warm, humid, and windy. So once it starts raining, I'm outdoors, because the rain kind of washes the pollen away. So I'm like, yay, it's like humid, but it's raining, and I'm outdoors in that weather. When it's really windy and hot is when I try and avoid going outside unless I have to. So if you must go outside, wear sunglasses, that's going to really help. And also, if you still have some face masks available, wear one of those as well. It's just gonna ease the symptoms a little bit. However, it isn't always practical, and I know that, and you don't want to have to stay indoors if you don't need to. If you've got a dog, you might have to walk your dog. You obviously got to do things and leave the house. So I'm going to give you some natural alternatives that you might like to try, and you might like to try a few of these or one of these, whatever works for you. So just as a reminder, I'm not a medical doctor, so you have to do what is right for you and always seek medical advice if your hay fever symptoms are particularly bad. Number one is a sinus flush or nasal irrigation, which sounds a bit more scary than it is. It's really like a saline solution that can really help to clear excessive mucus and wash away those allergens. And you can buy these from most pharmacies, potentially supermarkets if they're really big supermarkets as well. So they're fairly widely available. Number two is steaming your voice, which I talk about just generally for hydration. So as I say, particularly if you're someone that feels you need to take antihistamines, this could be another thing you could do to rehydrate the voice. Drink water, but also steaming can, will directly impact the vocal folds. So this is a great thing to do, whether or not you want to take antihistamines. It's going to, again, help to drain away excessive mucus. It's also going to kind of ease some of that tickliness and that dryness we can often feel when we have hay fever symptoms. And it's just brilliant for rehydrating the voice and the throat. And then number three is a barrier balm. And this is essentially, you put it on the end of your nose and it kind of traps the pollen, so it doesn't even enter into your body. And there's lots of options out there on the market. So Haymax is one that's quite big over here, but wherever you're listening to this from, I'm sure your particular country has its own version of that. But essentially, it's just a natural alternative to stop the pollen coming in the first place. So let's look now at diet, which of course can have a huge impact on our allergy symptoms. So this doesn't really have any clinical research, but a lot of people anecdotally say that it has a profound impact on their hay fever symptoms, which is having a teaspoon of local honey every day. Now, this is brilliant because it's going to like soothe the throat. It's going to be, it's not going to harm if you do this or not. So it's probably worth trying if you can get hold of some local honey. But again, there's no real clinical research behind this. It's more anecdotal evidence. Stinging nettles, which is interesting. Stinging nettle tea is known to have some natural antihistamine properties. And you can definitely get this. I've seen this actually even in major supermarkets here, but certainly health food shops. You can buy this in tea bag form and you can drink this. So again, that would be something to try. It's not going to hurt you. It's going to do you good anyway. But if it has any benefits, then that is brilliant. Again, these are going to vary from person to person, but utilizing some of these things in nature that we know have some certain properties is always going to be a positive thing. The final one is increased quercetin and bromelain. Now I'm going to put the words up here because I may not have pronounced these correctly, so hopefully I have. But we want to try and include more foods with these in them because they are known to assist with hay fever symptoms. So, for example, quercetin is found in citrus fruits, apples, onions, and olive oil as an example. And you could Google what foods you can find this in and just eat or drink more of that. Bromelain is predominantly found in pineapple, actually. And if you can get hold of pineapple, then trying to eat more pineapple or drink some pineapple juice could certainly help as well. But as I say, I will put the words below and on the screen so that you can actually Google and you can look up some ways you can get more of that into your diet. You can also get these in supplement tablet form from health food shops, definitely. And I've seen these online as well. If you haven't got a health food shop near you, you can definitely buy these online. And then finally, just some really simple things to bear in mind, but it's often the simple things that we actually forget. And I'm include myself in this too. But if you have been outside, when you come back, change your clothes, put them in the wash machine so that you're not bringing in pollen from the outside into your home. And so that can be a really quick and easy way to avoid perpetuating the hay fever symptoms. And again, this is If possible, I mean, for me recently, this hasn't been possible because it's been too warm, but if you can keep your windows shut during the day, that is also going to make a big difference, because your house is not going to be full of pollen, particularly if it's windy and it's just all blowing in as well. So there's just a couple of simple ideas just in a sort of day-to-day living way. So I hope that's helped. I would love to know your comments or thoughts. Also, if you have any of your own natural alternatives to over-the-counter antihistamines, I would love to know what you do, because I'm always on the lookout for new ways to try and curb my own hay fever symptoms. So thank you so much for watching. If you found this video useful or interesting, please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. But I will see you on my next video.